everyone, welcome to Freedom on Demand. My name is Saskia and this is just a short tutorial style video today. We are going to be playing with springs for a couple of common exercises on the Reformer. So often we think that to make an exercise harder or more challenging we need to add springs on, we need to make the carriage feel heavier. In actual fact, in a lot of exercises, removing springs means that you have to work a little bit more on control. So having a play with your springs and starting to learn more about when to take tension off, when to add tension on, can really help you get the most out of your Reformer practice. It can also help you change the focus and intention of an exercise. So we're going to start with a little bit of our footwork and feet and straps. I'm starting on one red, one green spring. So that is one heavy and one medium spring. By no means a super heavy spring tension for footwork, but we're just going to see how this feels. So come and have a lie down on your back. The heels are onto the foot bar about a hip width apart. The arms are just resting comfortably down at the side of the body. I want you to just start to work through some gentle footwork here, driving evenly through both heels as you press the carriage out and in. I'm just starting to tune into how the spring tension feels. As I say, one medium, one heavy spring on the carriage is not by any means a heavy spring tension for our footwork. But you might notice here that the back body stays connected onto that carriage relatively easily because we've got a decent amount of weight to stand into on that foot bar. The pelvis doesn't do too much tipping forward and back, or it doesn't feel too prone to tipping forward and back. We're able to maintain that nice alignment. Train tracks here. Knees tracking in line with the toes, thighs are parallel. I'm just going to do another 1 or 2 reps here. And then try a few reps down at the balls of the feet. Same thing, just tune into how it feels here working on this single heavy, single medium spring. And of course it's hard to make a comparison before we come to our next spring tension. But we're just going to do another couple here and then make our way into our feet and straps. So reach back behind you, grab hold of your long loops. Once you've got the feet into the long loops, just send the legs out, standing into those straps there. And straight away we can feel we've got a decent amount of tension to stand against in those ropes. So find that connection of the back body. Start with a few reps just drawing the knees in towards the chest and then standing out into those straps. Now because we've got a reasonably heavy spring tension here on the carriage for feet and straps, the return of the carriage in towards the stoppers gives you a decent amount of pull. When we stand out into the straps, we've got quite a lot of weight to stand against, so again, the pelvis is able to stay relatively steady here. I'm going to turn this into a hip hinge. Legs stay straight, they draw up to the ceiling, and then long and down towards the springs. The key with our hip hinge here is to try and maintain connection of the back body onto the carriage. So on this heavy spring tension, it's actually a little easier to do that. You don't feel quite so prone to that lower back pulling away, to the pelvis tipping forward and back. Let's try a couple of reps of our long spine here if it's in your practice. So the legs come up towards the ceiling, maybe slightly past the vertical, and then we stand into those straps into our long spine. Lower and melt the back body back down onto the carriage, and then send the legs out. Again, it's hard to make the comparison before we've changed springs, but on a red and a green spring here, we've got a decent amount of weight to stand into in those straps. This actually helps us with our long spine. Just another one there. And then soften and melt down. Couple of circles. Legs split out wide, circle around back to the ceiling. Nice. Go ahead and give the knees a hug to the chest. Might just want to do a little rock across the back of the pelvis. We are going to take the straps off the feet, just finding that foot bar. Have a sit up when you are ready. And we're going to change our springs down. So now we're going to go for a lighter spring tension. I want you to change to a single light spring and a single medium spring. So one yellow, one green this time, instead of one red, one green. Come and have a lie down onto your back again. We're going to pretty much repeat the same sequence. So we're going to start with the heels onto the foot bar, about a hip width apart, arms resting down at the side of the body. And I want you to work through some footwork here. Having to move quite slowly, quite intentionally here. If I push back too fast, I kind of almost lose the contact with the feet onto the foot bar. And certainly I'm feeling here that I'm having to work a little bit harder to keep that connection of the back body onto the carriage. My pelvis wants to tip forward. I haven't got quite the same amount of weight to stand against on that foot bar. Let's do a few reps at the balls of the feet, same thing. Carriage moves out and in. So a slight spring change here, which of course we're not working as much into the strength of the legs on this lighter spring, but there's a much more of a sense of control, sort of having to be a little bit more precise with our movement. Maybe is it a little bit harder for you to maintain that parallel position with the thigh bones. Stop the knees from sort of wobbling as you drive the carriage out and in. When you are ready, come all the way back to the stoppers. Grab hold of those long loops from behind you. And once again, bring the feet in. Straight away as you stand out into those straps, I'm noticing here that I have to find a little bit more connection through the abdominals because I haven't got quite the same amount of weight to stand into. I feel like the pelvis is a little more prone to tipping, so I'm finding that connection of the back body. Few reps here of the knees drawing into the chest, standing out into those straps, and straight away noticing how much more core control is required here, just with this simple movement of the knees drawing into the chest, standing out. Let's change to a hip hinge, legs draw up to the ceiling, long and down towards the springs. Really having to watch here that we don't come so low that we start to tip the pelvis and peel the back body away from the carriage. And this becomes so much more challenging when we don't have that weight to stand into. If you're game, let's try a few reps of our long spine. So we're going to float the legs to the ceiling, maybe slightly past the vertical. Heavy through the arms, zip up through the midline, stand into those straps for your long spine. Soften and melt the back body down. A little bit more of that core engagement here. Legs to the ceiling, from here pike. Soften and melt the back body down onto the carriage. Let's go through a few circles. So just that slight spring change there. We went from one medium, one heavy, to one medium, one light spring, but it really changes the feel of this exercise, this feet and straps and footwork sequence. When you are ready, give the knees a hug to the chest, and then you can go ahead and slip the straps off the feet. One other exercise that we are going to touch on, which is one that I love in our studio, is having a play with our knee stretch. So come to one red spring to start off with, one heavy spring, and bring yourself to kneel on the carriage, facing towards your foot bar with the feet up against the shoulder blocks behind you. Knee stretch here on this slightly heavier spring. We're going to work on having to really drive the carriage back and behind us. So we open through the front of the hips. Really nice position here, because we've got the tension on that carriage, the pelvis isn't quite so prone to dropping down, so we're able to hold this position here with relative ease. Push away through the arms to your knee stretch. Bring the shoulders back over the foot bar and then pull the knees underneath. Let's do a few reps here, noticing that we have to find a decent amount of drive, upper body strength here to push away from that foot bar, a good amount of drive through the legs to push into those shoulder blocks as you open through the front of the hip. Open, press back. Now this is going to feel very different when we move to our next spring tension, which is to either come down to a single medium spring, which is your challenging but still very doable, or if you're really game for a challenge, a single yellow spring, a light spring. So I'm going to go for that single yellow spring. Take care here if you are joining at home. As we open through the front of the hips, you will notice straight away that that carriage wants to fly back towards the end of the frame. We are far more prone to the pelvis dropping forward and arching through the lower back, so stay strong here. Send the carriage away, press through the arms. Not that you need to press very hard. We're drawing the upper body back in, pulling the knees underneath. And I always liken this to using those old school ab wheels. When you reduce the tension, that's when it's really hard. That's where there's heaps of core engagement. Keep breathing here. The return is so much harder when you don't have that red heavy spring pulling you in. Instead, you have to be so much more active, pulling on that foot bar. Let's do one more. Open through the front of the hips, press away through the arms, and come back in. Nice. So that was just a few exercises. Went through our footwork, our feet and straps, and our knee stretch. As I say, really just having a play with how you can change spring tension to really alter the purpose or the intention of an exercise. So hope that you got something out of that. We will keep going with our exercise tip series here at Freedom On Demand. Any questions, you can let us know. Thanks guys. Bye.